Hi, I'm Kristen, and today I'll be talking about the ambiguity of discernment as spoken about by Whitley Streiber. So on July 18th, 2026, Whitley Streiber took part in a Q&A with a multi-subreddit kind of coalition called the Anomalous Coalition. And so people across various subreddits on reddit.com were able to submit questions beforehand to Leslie Keene, Whitley Streiber, and there was one other guest that was on the program this past week. And so I submitted a question to Whitley, and he did end up answering it. So I will put in a clip here of what my question was and what his response was.
And this is for Whitley. Whitley, you have been incredibly open and honest about the complexity of contact and how your personal experiences have been a mixture of good and bad. To frame it as primarily being one way or the other would be disingenuous. Do you have any advice for experiencers who also have a mixture of positive and negative contact in regards to discernment and handling potential deception versus beneficial, truthful communications? Wow, that's a big loaded question, and I'm sure you can answer it beautifully, Whitley.
Okay. So we'll be here for the next 2 days
Well,
while I answer this question. This is, of course, the core of everything that the closing hour experience is about, is right here in this question. And the any direct answer to it pushes it away, in a sense, pushes this essential mystery away, because uh, it, it, this experience is a world of shadows, and in those shadows there are many things that look like images, and you can kind of put them together or see that they contradict each other. You have one experience that's terrible and another experience that's good, like, the referred to earlier, the abduction experience was terrible, but was it bad? That I don't know. I mean, maybe I wouldn't even be here. Maybe the abduction experience was there saving my life. I don't know what it was. Or maybe they took something from me they shouldn't have taken, or did both. It's impossible to tell. In any case, preserving this ambiguity and the energy of this ambiguity is the absolute key to making this make sense for an individual who is having this experience. If you try to come down on one side or another, you've dropped the thread. The thread of the close encounter experience is the question that it generates.
wow. Thank you for that. That's a beautiful answer, Whitley, and I think people will have a lot to think about with respect to what you just said. I'm not a experiencer like you are, but I can feel the profundity of what you just said.
Okay, so as you just heard, my question was about discernment and how to kind of tell the difference between something that is benevolent and truthful and trying to be helpful versus something that is deceptive. And those of us that have kind of ongoing, frequent contact, we are in contact with multiple kinds of beings, and it's very difficult in order to kind of tell if the communications that you're receiving, either via imagery or audible messages or just downloads, if those messages are correct. And the answer that Whitley had just given, I believe that it's accurate and truthful, but it's probably not the answer that people want to hear. So as Whitley kind of mentioned, he said that there's a necessity to preserve the ambiguity and energy of the ambiguity. It's the key to making this make sense for the person having the experience. And he said, if you come down on one side or the other, you've dropped the thread of the experience. And so this is something that I have had a huge amount of struggles with over the past few years as contact has ramped up and gotten more strange, I suppose. So I have contact with like tall grays and these orbs that seem to be messengers and give like telepathic messages, and there's light beings, and there's just a lot going on, and it is so difficult for me to tell if, like, when a communication is coming in, if I'm being lied to or not. And essentially what Whitley is saying is that with discernment, you have to keep things ambiguous. You are not going to have answers, and that's just not what people want to hear. when we're in contact with these beings, we can say what we saw, right? So I could say, I saw this tall gray and it looked like this and it had eyes like this and it was this kind of like texture to its skin, all of that. And I could say when I saw this light being that it stretched out and it looked like this and it had these types of rays. But even that could be deceptive. We know from many experiencers contact that there are such things as screen memories and screen visions, when one person might be seeing a full figure in front of them. If somebody tries to take a picture, it just appears as like an orb. And that apparently happens very frequently, where somebody is seeing like a huge craft or a being and trying to capture it. It won't appear like anything except like a small light, essentially. And so even our eyes can deceive us. And so when it comes to communications, like that can be even more deceptive. And it really just comes down to, I guess, feeling your way through the experience and walking on that tightrope, keeping that thread taut, of not fully believing and not fully disbelieving. And so as Whitley had just mentioned, like he has been taken before. He is one of the most kind of like major experiencers, major contactee abductees that is alive today. And so he remembers being on craft, but there's parts that are missing from his memory, as happens with most people. And so he mentioned like maybe they did something that he did not want having happen. But on the flip side, maybe they helped him, they healed him, and it's just there's no information given. We're not given explanations for why people are taken, contacted, visited, for the most part. And when there are explanations given, again, there could be deception. It could be you don't know if what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're knowing is truthful. And I find it incredibly frustrating. So I can say, at least from my experiences, as far as I know, I haven't been healed, but I have like received a loud booming voice kind of like message that was a premonition telling me lottery numbers, and I won the lottery. So the fact that that happened, it kind of shows like, well, that was benevolent, and there's no way to kind of get around the fact that it was benevolent. It happened, and it, like, the whole experience from start to end was kind of like a good experience that I couldn't frame in a negative way. Versus if there are messages given to me about another person, or if there's messages given to me about the future, those messages can be complex, and I can take them in one way or another, and I can make decisions about how I'll communicate with people or how I'll live my life in the future based on what those communications are. But essentially, it comes down to me and my own discernment and my own mission, I suppose, to determine like how I should be moving on. And it doesn't come down to the beings telling me something. And so that's something to really keep in mind for people that have a lot of contact and you don't know what's true and what's not, is that you can't rely on these beings to be truthful. And so, yeah, I guess like you should be really thinking about the fact that you can't live your life and make life plans based on what you've been shown, because you have the free will to change it or to not listen to them. This is something that one of my friends had mentioned to me too. He said that like he can get downloads and messages from his beings, and it could say like, do this, or you should do this, or this will happen. But he said that pretty much like after they've given that message, they wash their hands of anything that you end up doing after that point. And so he said that like sometimes they'll get a message where it's like you could clearly tell that this being outside of yourself wants you to do something, but if you say no, like they kind of like shrug and go, okay, and then you move on with your life. So even this idea that grays or mantids or any kind of like non-human intelligence is kind of like guiding you through your life, like that could be true on the one hand, where you will get information where, again, like the lottery numbers, it's something amazing and wonderful, and if you listen to them, great things happen. But there's also kind of like this hazy, shady area where you'll get communications that it might be self-serving for them, or it might be entertaining for them to see you go through certain things in your life that maybe you wish you didn't go through. Or let's say, even if it's not deliberately negative, like they're not making a horrible, chaotic kind of soap opera out of your life, you could still get communications that maybe lead you towards one career or the other, or one person or the other, or having one type of experience in your life or the other. And even if it's not bad per se, it's not kind of the highest level of living that you could be living. Like, so you could have had a much better life had you made a different choice by not listening to them. And so I know that I'm putting a lot of detail onto this, and Whitley was pretty kind of like vague about how he was talking about it, but he did say it's like it has to remain vague. You cannot settle on saying that I'm putting my whole heart and trust and belief into this being and these communications, because it will bite you. It will bite you in the behind. Um, and it's just something to really keep in mind, especially as so many more people are waking up and having contact, and they're saying like, oh my God, this is amazing. I got hit by this wave of love, or I got hit by like this really huge premonition that came true, and now I want to listen to everything they're saying. That you can't you can't trust in them fully, and you can't live your life around what they're communicating to you, because you could get a year or two or three of wonderful communications, and then it could just out of nowhere snap, and now you're being lied to. And I personally believe that when people get deceptive messages and lies and things that don't come true, and I think it's done specifically so that we don't treat these beings as gods. We don't treat them like they're omnipotent and the be all and end all of our lives. So we're not just kind of like mindlessly following some being that is talking to us. They want us to fall back on our own logic and our own emotions and our own belief systems in order to make decisions, instead of just listening to them. Like, obviously, if you get a communication of like, hey, if you go to this place 5 minutes away and something wonderful will happen, like, go and do it. It's like, if there's nothing left to lose and there's like a possible benefit to listening to the communication, go do it. And if it doesn't end up happening and it was one of the lies, then oh well, not much time taken out of your life, and it's not too much bother. But um, when it comes to, again, making major life decisions and like how your life is going to be arranged based on, again, like career, partner, major life events that you're going to take part in, like going on major trips or something like that, it is probably not appropriate to be listening to them and turning to them to decide what you're going to be doing, just because it could end up in a really poor spot. Yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed hearing about my question, and I hope that kind of I clarified a bit on like what Whitley was saying, because again, there's so much necessity in holding on to the ambiguity and holding on to vagueness, and not just assuming that whatever you're told is true. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.